Hello, listeners. Welcome to Marie Lives the Horror. This is episode 4 of the series, True Paranormal Ghost Stories. In this episode, I bring you 5 chilling tales of true paranormal experiences submitted to Reddit. So without further ado, step into my horror chamber as we live the horror together. Number 1. Haunted High School Pool. So, I've never posted on this subreddit before, but I joined because of this following story. I work as a shift lead lifeguard at the local high school pool. The pool isn't very old. It's been built in the last 15 years or so. I know there haven't been any drowning deaths there, but there is a rumor that somebody slipped in the men's locker room and died from head injuries. I've never found out if this rumor was real or not. I've worked there for just over a year now and have experienced weird things all the time. Lights would turn on and off. Toilets would be flushing in bathrooms when nobody is there. Strange noises and thuds would be heard. Basically, it was a lot of things that skeptics would pass off as natural occurrences, faulty lights and whatnot. My first story starts very early in the morning. Every morning we open at 5:30 a.m. I don't know why people want to swim so early, but whatever. I showed up at 5 a.m. to unlock the pool and do the morning setup. Around 5:15 a.m., I hear a knock on the front doors and see a guy standing out there. He was actually quite underdressed for the cold weather, but I didn't care. I opened the door and told him we didn't open until 5:30. He responded with, "Can I come in and change anyway? I won't get in the pool until then." I figured that was fine and let him in. He came to the front desk and pulled out his punch pass and scanned it. The program prompted me that his pass was expired. I told him that it was expired, and he responded, "Oh, it was a punch pass. Do they expire?" I explained to him that the punch passes have to be used within a year of being purchased, and then told him not to worry about it and that he could just go in today without paying. He said thank you and then took his swim bag into the locker room. A little bit later, my coworker texted me saying that he couldn't come in today because he was super sick. I knew he was lying, but whatever. Now over a half hour had passed and nobody else had come into the pool. I looked through the office window into the pool deck. Our pool is indoor. Our office is right next to the deck, and there is glass that allows us to view the deck. The man was not out there, and I could see that the men's locker room motion-activated lights had turned off. I went out to the deck and looked around. He was not there. I feared for the worst and ran to the locker room. The lights turned on and revealed nobody was there. No bag, nothing. I was a little freaked out at first, but then realized maybe this guy left through the doors on the opposite side of the pool without me knowing. Maybe he changed his mind about swimming. This story is kind of creepy, but could be a coincidence. This next story was at the same pool. This time, it was at night. We were closing, and I was with one other coworker. I was in our office, counting the money we had made for our report. My coworker went to check both locker rooms and turn the lights off. Moments after she went to check the men's locker room, I heard a very clear, long whistle. A long whistle activates our emergency action plan, essentially, meaning that someone is hurt and the other guard needs to assist. I dropped the money and ran to the locker room. When I rounded the corner to the locker room door, my coworker was walking out and was frightened when I was running at her. I asked why she blew her whistle, and she kept saying she hadn't. It turns out she left her whistle in the office. She was convinced that I was messing with her, but I know I heard a whistle. The second story here puzzles me, and I have no idea what happened. Some of my coworkers have reported having a guy coming into the pool, going into the locker room, only to never come out. I don't know if anyone here could explain to me what could possibly be happening, but honestly, I still hate working there alone. It scares me. Number 2. My student house is very, very haunted. This is a bit of a long one. My student house is haunted. In August of 2019, I, along with 4 other students, moved into what we thought was possibly a Victorian-era terraced house just off of our university campus. I usually have strong ghost radar, as my house back home is also very haunted. The activity didn't start until December, when I was home alone for the holidays. Everything was absolutely normal and felt safe. It didn't feel like anyone was watching me. One day, I stood in the kitchen when a wave of very bad energy washed over me and settled in the pit of my stomach. Since then, things have progressively been more active. At first, I would hear footsteps in the upstairs bedrooms. Being alone by myself, I thought this strange. Every bump around the house that I would hear could no longer be attributed to housemates, as I was alone. Still, nothing much happened. It was only a few weeks ago that things have gone completely crazy. The first major incident involved a housemate that I will call S. S was in the upstairs hallway grabbing the vacuum cleaner when the door to the closet in the hallway unlatched and swung open with a lot of force. S thought it was a housemate and began talking to it, and then soon realized no one was in the house. We usually keep the downstairs bathroom door closed. One day when I was home alone, I had found the door either open or the light on multiple times. One time S was in her room studying, and her bedroom door opened slightly and then was held open about a foot for a few seconds. As all the doors are heavy and weighted, it was impossible for it to be the wind. And considering the long mirror adjacent to the door, which shows her the alleyway, it couldn't possibly be another housemate. This has happened to her a couple of more times. Another housemate named M kept her handbag on the bookshelf on the wall near her bed. In the middle of the night, the bag somehow tumbled along the shelf and landed directly on her head. The same morning, there was a pounding knock on my bedroom door, which I didn't answer to because I just didn't want to. I went downstairs and found M and asked her if she was knocking. It was only me and her in the house, and she had been downstairs for a while and didn't knock on my door. There has been a few knocks since. M once heard the front door open and someone shouted, "Hello?" into the house. There was nobody there and the door was locked. Around 5 a.m. one morning, I was sitting at the table in the living room which faces the wall. Behind me in the room, I heard a woman say, "Meep," which is hilarious on its own. I texted the group chat M, S, and I shared, and S told me she also awoke and heard the voice in the next room. Her room is directly next door to the living room. One morning, S swung her legs off her bed to leave it, and something grabbed her ankle. She did not leave her bed for a very long while after that. One time, S and I were chatting in our kitchen, and M went to use the downstairs bathroom, which is right beside the kitchen. We could hear her watching videos on her phone, and the sound was baby noises. I can't remember if it was laughing or crying, but it was clear as day baby noises. When M leaves the bathroom, we ask her, "Hey, what's up with the baby video?" And she tells us she was watching TikTok videos, and there was definitely no baby sounds coming from her phone. We then did an experiment where I stood in the bathroom playing music on my phone, and S would tell me if she heard baby noises or not. But she just heard only my music. When I was standing in a specific spot in the kitchen, S and I can hear arguing, which sounds like it's in the house, but there will be no one else there, and we can't hear the arguing anywhere else. Only this spot in the kitchen, which is right beside the oven. My grandmother gave me holy water, so the other night I put some on S's bedroom door and asked whoever it was to please leave her alone. I gave her a little glass with a small amount of holy water in it for her peace of mind. She placed it on her desk near the middle. In the night, when she was sleeping, she hears a bang and finds the glass on the floor with the holy water spilled out. That same night, I was up late, sitting in the same spot in the living room where I heard the voice behind me earlier. Behind me is the door to the kitchen, and adjacent to that is the under the stairs cupboard with a full-size door. I hear 3 knocks on this door. Later, I checked to see if anything maybe had fallen against the door, but the cupboard is mostly empty, and there was nothing near the door. I know there was definitely more that has happened, but I can't remember it all right now. I just wanted to post this and ask what you all think about it because there's just a whole lot going on in this house, and it's impossible to ignore. Every single day, something new happens, and it seems more frequent. Also, for some reason, it's really targeting S. Edit. I just remembered the scariest incident that happened and can't believe I didn't put it in here. Once again, this happened to S. She was locking her bedroom door, which is right beside the staircase. She heard someone running down the stairs, which would be quite loud as it's right behind her. She looked up expecting to see one of us, and there was no one on the stairs. And the footsteps were still descending as she was looking at the empty staircase. She ran out of the front door and locked it, and could still hear the footsteps coming towards her. As a matter of fact, while I was typing this, I was sitting beside the back garden window and witnessed the locked gate fly open in front of my eyes. Minutes before that, the living room door moved, and I looked up for a split second to see a white haze moving across the handle. This is a whole lot. It seems every minute something else is happening around us. Number 3. My college dorm was haunted by an asshole ghost. This happened a few years back when I was an undergrad. I attended a school that is several hundred years old, like before United States was an independent country old. And as such, a lot of the campus and the surrounding town is reportedly haunted. My freshman year, I lived in one of the oldest dorms on campus. I heard stories of various hauntings since before I applied, but I never expected anything to actually happen to me. A few weeks into the semester, things started happening. Closet doors would fly open, books would fall off the desks, posters would fall off the walls, that sort of thing. It was infrequent at first, but as the weeks went on, it got so frequent and brazen that the entity we named Jim would move things several times a week and start waking us up in the middle of the night. My roommate and I were understandably unnerved, but we didn't know for sure that it was a ghost. We never actually saw the things move. We were always at our computers or desks and just looking somewhere else, so we only saw the aftermath. So we decided to try to gather proof. We bought a camera and set it up where it would have a view of the whole room. We had it up for over a week, and in that span, nothing happened. My roommate got frustrated and turned the camera off one night. That same night, we woke up to a crash and saw the camera had fallen off the dresser and broken. The presence we named Jim had waited for us to turn the camera off. What an asshole. We were certain at that moment we had a third roommate with us. After that, things kind of calmed down. Things still moved, but only every couple of weeks, and very rarely at that. The next year, we talked to the people who lived in the room, and they said they were experiencing the same kind of things that we had. So we know it wasn't just us imagining things. This experience is probably not as intense or interesting as most stories on here, but it was certainly one of the most intense experiences of my life and definitely turned me into a believer of something outside of what we know. Number 4. The Scratches and Noose Man. This is a long one, so get ready. I'm not much of an author either. I usually hate sharing these things online, but I feel like some people might like this or have an idea of what it means. It all started about 2 to 3 years ago when we moved into our new house. The house was normal and we got it checked out for any rodents, animals, etc. The place was clean. It was pretty perfect, small but good enough for us. My room was down the hall, across from my mother's, which is right next to my brother and her boyfriend's son's room. The room had a pretty normal layout. The only thing a bit odd was that my room was in an old laundry room directly below our pull-out attic entrance. I didn't really care as we never used it anyway, so what was the big deal? I experienced nothing for the first couple of weeks, but then it started. I began to wake up every single night, no matter the day, when I went to sleep. I would always wake up around 3 a.m., give or take a couple of minutes, and I never managed to fall back asleep until 4 a.m. I had assumed it was my awful insomnia at work and never paid any attention to it. Sure, it creeped me out, being the witching hour and all, but I didn't really care after a bit. Then it got worse. Not only was I waking up every morning, I began to wake up in cold sweats, a panic, and having nightmares almost every single night. I can't remember much of them now, but I remember patterns and places. It always took place in my town, but everything was just slightly off and distorted. But that was not the worst of it. I then heard the scratches in the walls, above me in the attic, and sometimes on my tile floor below the foot of my bed. If it was the floor of the attic, it sounded like how a dog's nails hit hard surfaces, or human nails clawing. If it was in the walls, it always, no matter what, sounded like a human clawing at a wall. I convinced myself it was a rodent, even though we just got the house checked. I didn't care about it. Sure, only hearing it from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. was weird, but maybe it was an animal active at night. Then it got even worse. Scratches began to be accompanied by footsteps, loud and clear steps, and thuds, people whispering to quiet down, or for me to wake up, or just incoherent sound from all directions. It got so bad I began to put a pillow over my head, and when that didn't drown it out, I would stay up and read or do work. The activity continued to worsen, and I started seeing shadow figures pop up in the doorway and would leave themselves into my mom's room. I'd spot them in the kitchen sometimes, but I blamed it on my lack of sleep. The noises eventually got so loud, my mom heard them, and we were both convinced, along with some friends, that someone had to be living up there. We called pest control to make sure it wasn't an animal, and with an empty attic, it would be pretty easy to spot anything. We then called some friends to help search for a person, but like before, there wasn't a trace of life up there, and there wasn't a single way that someone could get in. It got so bad, I refused to sleep in my room and moved to the couch, where it was finally quiet. I still see the weird shadow in the kitchen, but that I could deal with. I then finally worked up enough courage to sleep in my room again, and the first night it was normal, besides waking up early. Now, this next part may seem a bit random, but it connects later. I decided to take an old flower crown I made that summer and hang it on the chain that would pull the stairs down to the attic. It was just a random and goofy gesture, but I started having dreams about suicide after, and vivid imagery of a noose when I would wake up and look at it. I never saw it that way beforehand, but it freaked me out enough to take it down. The noose-themed dreams stopped, which was good. It might have been my paranoia connecting the chain with a circle-shaped crown to that image, or something more sinister. At first, I thought paranoia, but after a later incident, I didn't think so. I eventually swapped rooms with my mom after that, and everything stopped. Now, fast forward to last summer, when we moved into a different house. We now had pets, 2 cats and a dog. They were all absolute sweethearts, although one of the cats was significantly more antisocial than the other. For the first few weeks, maybe almost a month, everything was fine. That's when the dog started to bark at the air at the end of 2 specific hallways, whimpering and whining, refusing to go near the end. I knew about animals and ghosts, but I wasn't freaked out just yet. That was until both of the cats grew visibly more protective of me and my brother, and all 3 animals began to act up at the hallways. I still didn't care, but that was only until I heard scratching at my closet. I assumed it was the cat, since he slept with me, So I was like, whatever. Until one night, after my sleeping pattern of waking up early began to repeat, I heard it. I sighed, turning to the right of my bed to see my cat staring at the closet door, still right next to me on my bed. My cat was clawing at the sheets. My other cat slept with my brother, so it couldn't have been him. I turned on my phone's flashlight, but it stopped when I sat up. I didn't hear it after that, which was good. Fast forward to about another week, when I had one of my friends over at my house. She was downstairs, finishing up something like eating or cleaning a plate. So I said, meet me upstairs, and she agreed. I was in my room messing around with my cat when I see my friend bolt into my room with my antisocial cat at her side. She was in a panic, and I asked her what was wrong. She said the end of the hallway felt off. She felt scared, and it was like she saw something, but not with her eyes. All of a sudden, I then blurted out without thinking, there was a man hanging from the attic, wasn't there? Our new pull-out attic was located next to my room at the end of the hall. My friend nodded, asking how I knew what image popped into her head. Truth was, I didn't know either. But then I thought about the flower crown, the similarities in the images, the scratching, the animals, and the shadow people. It all seemed connected, but was it really? I still don't know if it was or not. I just know the theme of scratches and nooses stopped after that night, and my pets stopped freaking out too. We later moved out of that house, and not a single thing has happened since. My friends grew convinced someone was following me, living in my attic and closet. I think something was following me, but I doubt it was human. Number 5. My childhood home. I lived in the same house from birth until I married at 19 and moved out. When I was 4, my bedroom was catty-cornered to my parents' room. One night, I saw something green and glowing in the crack of their open door. I screamed, and they got up and, of course, showed me nothing was there. I knew what I saw and have never forgotten it. My mother didn't sell the house for years after my father's death. I never saw anything else, but I never wanted to be on the second story alone. The bathroom was up there, last room on the right. I didn't ever talk about it with my brothers and sisters, but the second floor was just creepy. I always ran down the hall to get downstairs every time I had to go up there, and never stayed in my room to study unless my sister was there too. When my mother got to be about 75, my mom sold the house and moved in with my brother. None of my siblings wanted the house, and it was a nice house. Anyway, one day my mom let it slip that the father of the family they bought the house from had committed suicide by gun in the bathtub. Oddly, the bathtub was the most pleasurable place in the entire house to me. Go figure. It was one of those tall, claw-footed tubs that filled up to your chin, and I'd read in it for hours. The suicide news was freaky enough, but then I found out that the family she sold it to, who had a young sons and had been her neighbors while my father was living, had one child who was terrified of the house. He said he didn't want to live there because my dad was still there. It wasn't my father. I told her to tell him my dad would never hurt him, hoping to allay his fear. I know how he feels. If by chance my dad is there, he would never let anything bad happen to a child. My oldest brother died at 10 months, 2 years before I was born, and my dad treasured all of his children. That family moved after 5 years, and I haven't seen the house since. Unlike a lot of people, I have no desire to revisit my childhood home. Hello, listeners. Thanks for listening to this episode of True Paranormal Ghost Stories as you live the horror with me. If you would like to submit some of your own true paranormal experiences for me to narrate on this channel, check the description down below and send them over to my email. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell to keep up with future episodes. Thanks for listening. I am your host, Marie Lives the Horror.